It's 1938, the Depression is still in swing, and World War II is just about to start. But I have guests coming over. I'm your host, Lynn, and let's dress to impress. Let's ignore the fact that my clothes aren't entirely accurate, and that's not a phonograph. The recipe I will be using is historically accurate. Today I will be making an inexpensive cocoa cake recipe from the Most For Your Money Cookbook by Rosa, Cora, and Robert Brown, a family of chefs dedicated to making cheap cooking healthy. Our specific recipe was created during the Great Depression, though not at its height. It being 1938, people were still scraping by, the US not having won World War II to boost the economy back into shape. The cookbook was created to help, quote, stretch the dollar and be less wasteful in cooking. They claim that everyone should be able to eat a full, healthy, though not the way you're thinking, meal without having to take damage to their wallet. The writers often compare American to more European cuisines to show how we don't use our ingredients to the fullest. Though not really the best take to have on the current state of the US, this cookbook is able to exemplify the views of many Americans trying to save as much as they can. The lack of many eggs, replacing what would usually be milk with water or snow, I am not joking, and general tips and tricks to help to penny pinch shine through the entire cookbook. Even the name of my recipe, Inexpensive Cocoa Cake, shows the obvious goals of this book. Now, the recipe itself isn't that hard as long as you know what you're doing. The recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of cocoa, 1.5 cups of flour, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 cup of sour milk, and this is sour milk as in you take a cup of milk and put a tablespoon of vinegar or lemon into it. Didn't know that. 1 egg, 1 cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of butter, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. All pretty simple ingredients that people can find almost anywhere. I try to recreate the steps to the best of my abilities. The steps are as follows. Sift together first 5 ingredients. This is your flour, cocoa, baking powder, soda, and salt. Whip a sour milk. Add to beaten egg and beat thoroughly. Beat in sugar and soften butter. Add vanilla, give a final beating, and fold in sifted flour mixture. This means lightly. Spices may be used for seasoning if desired, and 2 or 3 tablespoons of shortening added for a slightly richer cake. Bake in a moderate oven. This is 350 to 375, depending on your oven, as cupcakes in a sheet or in layers. Inexpensive but surprisingly good. Bake it in 3 layers, put together with plain broiled frosting. This cake is at its best. I did take the recommendation of putting it into 3 layers, and I am planning on making the broiled frosting. By the point of giving the final beating, I did have to call in the help of my editor to help try to do it, which I eventually did take over again. That was probably shown in the video before. It's a hard cake to make if you're just folding in things in by hand, but I did end up using my mixer for this, though on my second batch I didn't, and it actually, I think, turned out better. Now, while that's in the oven, let me tell you about chocolate cake. The history of chocolate cake isn't that far back. It started with Dr. James Baker, no pun intended, first creating cocoa powder, or a variant thereof, by grinding cocoa beans together. Conrad van Houten, however you say it, this is how it's spelled, was able to extract the fat from cocoa liquor, creating cocoa butter, which basically made chocolate more accessible to the everyday person. Rudolf Lindt, this is how you spell it, I don't know how to say it, then made even better crosses in 1879. But it wasn't until 1886 that American cooks would start making chocolate cakes as we know it today. In the 1920s, chocolate cakes became mainstream, and we would even get chocolate cake box mixes as soon after World War II from the likes of Betty Crocker and General Mills. Box cake mixes you can still find on the shelves. The popularity of chocolate cake only grew. Chocolate decadency cakes became more popular in the 1980s. In 1990s, chocolate molten cakes or chocolate lava cakes became became popular, and now people add all sorts of flavors and make chocolate cake making more artisanal. Oh, and I think it just got done. I guess it's time to decorate with the unpleasantly named boiled frosting, which isn't actually boiled. It's named after the fact that I put hot sugar into whipped egg whites, boiling them, kind of. The recipe reads, it's just 1/2 cup of sugar, a 1/2 cup of water, hot water, 3 eggs, egg whites, and flavor. I use vanilla extract. The recipe reads, put sugar and water in a saucepan. Stir until sugar is dissolved and bring to a boiling point. Boil without stirring. If crystals form on the side of the pan, wipe them down with a dampened cloth until syrup spins into a long thread when not dropped from a spoon. This is going to take longer than you expect. I was impatient. Add flavor and pour syrup gradually into beaten egg whites, and while beating constantly. I don't know how I would have done this without a standing mixer, and I even had a hard time trying to pour it at a constant speed, if you can tell by my video of screaming. I got the help from my editor Kai to help film it, and it was a chaotic mess, but it came out alright. Continue beating until the right consistency to spread. For 1 egg white, use 1 cup of sugar, a 1/3 cup of water, and a 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar. This frosting takes a little more skill than butter frosting, or one made with confectioner's sugar. I've made a ton of those, and this was definitely harder, but it is well worth the troubles, since it has no pew when it comes to the real creaminess in the taste. Yeah, it is a pro. I do like this recipe. It tastes almost like marshmallow fluff. Besides, varied ad infinitum, by additions to the frosting, nut meats, chopped figs, marshmallows, raisins, dates, or melted squares of chocolate are a few suggestions. Now, I didn't add anything to the actual frosting, but I did decorate it with some shaved chocolate and some raspberries. Lucky for me, the cookbook gives some tips about how not to get ripped off by a fruit salesman. It says, with berries, melons, and smaller fruits, if the seller has something worth buying, he's glad to give you a sample taste. If not, beware. Now, I tried my best to get the attention of a Walmart employee so I could try the berries, but with little success.
Somebody, please let me eat these berries. Somebody let me eat the berries.
But I think it'll be fine either way. Now, while inexpensive, I would consider this dish a lordly dish in my book. It was light, fluffy, amazing. It had a light chocolate flavor. It wasn't like a super deviled food cake kind of situation. And the frosting was delicious. It was almost like a marshmallow fluff situation. And I did underbeat mine a little bit, but other than that, it was really good. And that was not a fault by the recipe. That was just my incompetency. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this inexpensive cake as much as we did.
Happy Depression to you. Happy Depression to you. Happy Depression, dear America.